That's my baby. That's my baby.
We're going at it at 110%.
I just want 5 minutes of happiness, please. Just give me 5 minutes.
And they scored! They did it!
Left.
What the hell was that? Oh, yeah!
What the fuck are you talking about?
Bob Mannery here. You're listening to A2D Radio, real sports talk radio for the fans, by the fans, no agenda. These guys are the best in the business. Hashtag it. No notes.
What's up, fam? Thursday night, Birds of a Feather coming at you live here on A2DRadio.com. Packed house tonight. Chrome, Chucks, Pete Evans. I don't know which way I'm pointing. Big Dad down here. We got Jeff Warner down here joining us, guys. Lots to talk about. Big week, obviously, with the firing of Doug Pederson. So, first things first, let's get the house in order. We want to say thank you to our doc, our sponsor, Dr. Paul Vidal, Specialized Physical Therapy. You can find him in Burlington and Cherry Hill, New Jersey. You can find him on the web, specializedphysicaltherapy.com. No appointment necessary. So make sure you check out the doc. Get yourself in order. Little TLC for yourself. Also brought to you by Ambuck Services, AMBUCKservices.com. Gutter guards, gutter cleaning, deck installation, restoration, any kind of outside work that you need done. You want to let Michael Ambrose know that the fam here at A2D Central, you're going to get 20% off of your services. That's ambuckservices.com. Topic of conversation brought to us today by, there it is, allcampusoc.com. You need any kind of team hats, any of that gear there, guys, you want to check them out, allcampusoc.com, and you're going to use that discount code A2D. You're going to get 15% off of your order. So make sure you guys check them out. It's allcampusoc.com. Topic of conversation tonight, guys. We're going to be talking about the Eagles head coaching search, and we want to ask the question here to the panel. The next Eagles head coach must be offensive-minded. Agree, disagree. So if you're checking us out on Facebook, YouTube, Periscope, Twitch, Twitter, wherever you're at, we appreciate you, and we want you guys to join the conversation. So make sure you're sending in your comments, your thoughts, your reactions to what we have to say. As we go along here, we're also going to talk about our Eagles 2020 awards. I don't know what awards there are to give out, but I guess Chucks will help us out with that because I don't know about anybody else. I did no preparation because I got no awards to give out this year. But we're going to do our 2020 awards as well as discuss the upcoming weekend of the NFL playoffs and, of course, our no huddle. We also have live Sixers action right now facing the Miami Heat, getting Tobias, Matisse Thybulle, and Shea Milton back. So Sixers just went up 8, went on a little run. Nice, love to see that. But guys, let's kick it off. And you know what? I'm gonna defer just because we had a similar conversation on Tuesday night on After Dark. So I want you guys, particularly Pete, Jeff, and Chucks, I want you guys to chime in first here in terms of where you see. Where the offensive or where the head coach needs to come from, whether it's on the offensive or defensive side of the ball. And then I think me and Tom will chime in after the fact. So let's go over to Chuckser here. What do you think, Chucks?
Well, I'll put it this way. And if you guys haven't checked it out yet, I wrote an article. It came out last night about the traits that the Eagles should be looking for when it comes to their new head coach. And the first thing I put was leadership. It has to be a great leader. That's obvious. But the second thing I put in there was that they have to be an intelligent offensive mind. Now, me saying that doesn't necessarily mean that I'm opposed to a defensive-minded coach. If we hire a defensive-minded coach, we've got to bring an offensive coordinator with him to be, that is an intelligent offensive mind, so that still is in place. So it's not necessarily that the coach himself, in my opinion, has to be an offensive mind, but the whole hiring process, you have to get some type of new and fresh and creative voice in this locker room on this team to create a new offense that can just do things we haven't seen. So I'm going to disagree, although I would lean that way toward the head coach being offensive minded because, this way we don't have to worry about offensive coordinators or cycling through offensive coordinators every couple of years. I'm not shutting the door on any great names that come up. Like one of the names the media's been talking about lately is Robert Saleh from the defensive coordinator from the Niners, and I love Robert Saleh. I think he's a leader, a phenomenal leader, animated, a player's coach, great defensive mind, and it's been reported that he's planning to bring either Mike McDaniel or Mike LaFleur with him. So if you guys don't know, they are the running game and passing game coordinators for the Niners. So they would bring a similar scheme that Kyle Shanahan's zone run scheme over to here. And you guys know me being a big Kyle Shanahan fanboy, I love that scheme. So I'm all for that. So even though I'm leaning toward offensive minded, I'm not going to totally shut the door on a great coach that comes in interviews just because they're more of a defensive coach. It all just depends on who they're bringing with them and if they have the leadership traits and all the other stuff that I talked about in my article. So I'm going to disagree to the poll.
Pete?
What's up, fam? Hopefully everybody had a good week. It's good to be back here with you guys, chopping it up. Eagles never leave us any dull moment. And Jeffrey Lurie looked about as red as a beet on Tuesday. But no, if you put yourself in the box, I'm vehemently going to disagree with the poll. Going into this process, questioning the decision to fire the head coach in the first place, and then you put yourself more in the corner to say he has to be offensive minded. Like the offense has more to fix than what I even think the defense has right now because the quarterback position is questionable. I mean, to me right now, Saleh probably is my leading candidate for the job, being a defensive-minded coach because of who he may bring with him. But what you do is if you get that star-studded offensive coordinator, chances are that OC is going to leave within 2 to 3 years to be a head coach somewhere, a la Denver, Mike McCoy. I don't even know if he's in the fucking league anymore. You saw what happened when Atlanta had that run. Dirk Cutter was the OC. He got a job in Tampa. So not to say that you can't have it happen, but I mean, offensive minds out there. I mean, that's generally I really say those would be the majority of the coaches now, right? Especially this year with the coaching candidates. I think Saleh really is the only defensive type minded coach out there. Really, no special teams coaches really getting any love out there as far as being a head coach, because one of the things that we said about Doug really was he was a leader of men. And I think you need somebody to really coordinate and for everybody to feel comfortable in their position and not to be jealous of one another or looking for any way to get out or go there or have their own man. That's why I really think a defensive-minded coach would come in handy if you're looking for long-term. But so I disagree, and Jeff can have the floor, but we all know what Jeffrey and how we think.
I would say, Pete, Chucks, you both brought up some great points. I would say about the leadership quality, and usually defensive-minded coaches bring that leadership quality. But I have to agree with the question. I understand there's not a lot of great candidates out there for that are offensive-minded, but in this new age of the NFL, you need to score points to win in this league. You can win games with a mediocre defense, but if you're not putting up points from your offense, it's not going to matter. I would say they proved that by winning the Super Bowl a couple years ago. They had to compete in a shootout with Tom Brady in that Super Bowl. Our defense made no plays whatsoever, hardly, which Jeffrey Lurie brought up about in his press conference, the Jim Schwartz. I would say we keep on talking about, I would say that we don't run the ball enough, that we don't. We had one of the worst passing attacks last year in the NFL. So I'll say, unfortunately, I'm not really keen on a lot of the candidates, but I feel they need to find someone that is offensive minded because they need to find something to fix Carson Wentz. They need to fix this offense, get it back on pace, because in today's NFL, you need to score points to win football games.
Big Dad?
Yeah, I agree with Jeff. I agree to the poll, because until you fix Carson Wentz, this organization is a train wreck no matter who you bring in. So, I mean, you can bring in the smartest defensive guy in the world, and you got the 85 Bears, but if you have no quarterback production at all, like we had this year, you're going to be a 5-win team. 4-win team, 6-win team, 7-win team, something not good enough and not where we want to be. And then we're back into the same position, drafting in the top 3, hoping that, maybe we'll get our quarterback this year. Maybe we'll land him. So to me, I'm not usually a guy who says it's one way or the other in terms of the next coach, but I need an offensive guy in here. I'm looking for an offensive guru. I'm looking for somebody not only because, all I heard about how bad Doug Pederson's play design was. That's all I had to get pounded in my head online for the last 3 months, that all of a sudden he forgot how to call plays, and that's fine. Maybe he did. I don't know. So I want a really smart offensive mind in here, because if that's part of the reason why we failed, then I want to make sure it's not going to be a reason moving forward on why Carson and some of our other picks may not look good right now. I want that to be something we can move forward and say, okay, well, you know what? It's just the players, right? Because we've tried 2 offensive guys, and a real smart guy, and this is where we're at. So usually, I like Robisola a lot. It's not a guy I'm against. I don't really have a favorite candidate anymore. It was Lincoln Riley. It doesn't seem like he's coming in right this minute. So, I don't have one. Kellen Moore, I hate. So it just, to me, there's no exciting name out there. This is why I didn't want to go through this. This is why
we didn't want to be in this fucking position in the first place. That's the problem. This is not the time to be single looking for somebody at all. In any walk, shape, form, or fashion in life, and especially with your fucking coach. And you're, 2 weeks behind everybody else? 2 weeks behind everybody else.
Yeah.
I will say this. Doug and the Eagles fucked each other.
Yeah, both. You know what? We're 2 weeks behind everybody else, but really the only jobs that look like they're going to come off the board pretty quick are jobs that we kind of expect to know. We knew who was going where. Urban Meyer came off the board today, went to Jacksonville, and I would be remiss if anybody on this panel didn't agree that Doug will probably be with the Jets by next week. Is there anybody who doesn't believe that Doug will end up with the Jets? And I'm curious.
He might. Well, it depends. I think he could, but I think there was that report that he might
take a year off.
Yeah, might taking some time off. I don't know if I believe that or not. I'm just saying, if he's looking for a job, I will say that to the Jets is definitely a likely place. It's definitely possible that it makes a lot of sense. I'm not gonna guarantee it. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
See, I still feel like it's a pretty close to my personal opinion. I just look at it and, yes, there's first of all, there's a lot of jobs open, and I'm sure there will be next year. But that being said, the opportunity to work with somebody who you did have a good rapport with, who you can call more of the shots with, that's not something that's necessarily going to be available for Doug next year. This might be the only opportunity where he fits into an ideal situation where he has the autonomy to basically run his team the way that he would want to run it. And that's how it sounds like it would be if he went with Joe Douglas in New York. So, he may be taking a week and just chilling out, but it would shock me if by the end of next week he's not the head coach of Jets. But
How many years did he have left on this deal? 2, right?
I don't know.
2 or 3.
I never looked at his
I
contract.
think next year and the year after.
Yeah, if you're him, you are whoever takes the fucking credit. Whoever put the staff together in 2017 and 2018, you were a Super Bowl winning head coach. You look at he really has the luxury because he's going to get a paycheck regardless from Lori, no matter what. He's getting paid regardless. So it's the minute he takes on another job, that paycheck goes away. So would you rather
that's true.
Get paid sitting on your ass observing and really being able to hand pick the next job that you want? Or do you want to get raped? How do we feel his desire? Coach is. What do you gauge that at?
Last night on the Fix and the PM, I think it was Greg. I heard him say something along the lines of maybe it was Greg. I don't remember who exactly it was, but somebody insinuated that Doug, that stigma is there that he tanked that Week 17 game, right? Whether we agree or disagree. That stigma is out there. And then they said, oh, well, if he goes away for a week or for a year, that'll go away next year. I don't think something like that does. I think that follows you. The only way to get that to go away is to get back into the game. And again, Joe Douglas is a guy I think that knows him better than anybody. to where that's the ideal situation to come in and prove yourself. I think that's something that follows him. I think if he sits out a year and he comes back next year or 2 years from now, that's still going to be something that people are going to ask questions about. So, I mean, to me, if I'm Doug, it doesn't seem like he wanted he didn't want to be here, but it doesn't seem like he didn't want to not coach. I don't see why he doesn't go ahead and go into that situation where I think it benefits him best of anything that I think will be available over the next couple of years to kind of rebuild his
image.
His image. Right. Good word.
Well, word. I mean, wouldn't you want to do that with the team that you won the fucking Super Bowl with? I'm just going to throw this out there.
Listen, I mean, I didn't even answer the poll yet, and I was going to bring that up. So,
okay.
To me, the other night on After Dark, I said I would like a defensive coach. Right. But I have swayed a little bit from that. Again, I'm not taking anybody off the board. However, with everything that's come out since then, and I know that we talk a lot about hearsay, but I look at Troy Aikman, and I see no reason for Troy Aikman to speculate on anything. And if Troy Aikman tells me it came from the horse's mouth that he wanted Jalen Hurts and Jeffrey Lurie wanted Carson Wentz, I think in the end, there was way too many egos in the room, and they both had to part ways. B, the priority is to fix Carson Wentz. That's the main key factor, I believe. So that's the case. I need a guy who's going to come in here that has a plan of this is what we're going to do. I want an offensive-minded coach, and I want a guy who has coached quarterbacks and knows how to develop quarterbacks. That's why I'm with Tom. I like Lincoln Riley a lot. But obviously that doesn't look like it's going to happen. However, to me, to right the ship, and even if we don't have a great year, maybe we're a 6-win team next year, whatever. But if you can right the ship and get your franchise quarterback so that when you bounce back in, whether it's 2021 next year or 2022, you're feeling pretty confident that where your quarterback is at, I'm good. That to me is the biggest thing for next year. Even more so in my mind than winning the division. I need my franchise quarterback to be my franchise quarterback again. And I just truly, I think I definitely swayed. If I have a preference, I want an offensive-minded guy who knows how to develop talent and knows how to develop quarterback. Because that's the other thing here, guys. We didn't see enough talent developed under Doug. Whether they were great picks by Howie or not, JJ Arcega-Whiteside, he was more in a milk carton last year. He disappeared even more. I didn't think it was possible to disappear.
He was under the umbrella, man.
I mean, it was like, that's like a big umbrella. Like, you can't see that motherfucker under that thing. It's gone. But I've never, I just don't feel like there hasn't been enough talent developed under the previous coaching staff in hindsight. And that's a problem for me. So I want a guy who's going to develop talent, a guy who has a plan for Carson Wentz so that we can right this ship. And I trust that they can figure out as far as the defensive. There's going to be defensive names out there too, by the way, who are going to miss out on some head coaching jobs that could still be available for coordinator positions, or some other guys out there who maybe are doing a linebackers coach or something somewhere who could have an opportunity to go into a defensive coordinator position.
Yeah,
I'm looking at that New England. Am I right? Jared Mayo?
Yeah.
It's a guy right now who's a linebackers coach. Am I correct about that?
I don't even think he's a linebackers coach. He's an inside linebackers coach.
Okay.
So he's basically just inside linebackers.
3 years ago, he was in the league playing.
But what's crazy is
2 years ago.
I read a lot about him over the last week or so, and he's a guy they call him Jared Belichick. I look at this guy as this could be a guy who might be on the prime. They say he could possibly be a head coaching candidate. Maybe if he misses out this year, that's a guy who's ready to take that next step into the defensive coordinator position. Maybe that's a guy you look at who you could bring in here and write that defense a little bit. I'm just throwing a couple of names out there.
How did that work for hiring your defensive coordinator before you hire your head coach?
No, I'm saying hire the head coach first. Okay. Obviously, you hire the head coach first, but now I'm thinking of, after you get your head coach, there's names out there that you can look at for the defensive coordinator position to work, fix up the defense. I think there's enough pieces there that they could work with. But priority one is Carson Wentz. And,
Right.
with Doug, I this may be, I may get heat for this, but I'm going to say it, there's a part of me that feels like Frank did have a lot more to do with that Super Bowl, and that Doug lucked out into that Super Bowl because it's gone downhill really fast since Frank's gone. And just the thought process that I'm hearing to want to continue to promote guys who did nothing to earn a promotion coming into this next year just blows my mind. And I get wanting to have control over certain things, but I don't know.
The thing is, from standing back looking at it, and Tuesday when he first got fired, the first thing I said in our chat, I said the main priority is to fix Carson Wentz. That's number one. Whoever the next coach is, number one priority is to fix Carson Wentz. But speaking of how we got to this point, the problem is too many people want fucking credit for the Super Bowl.
Oh, for sure.
Too many. Howie thinks it was all him. He's the reason for it. Obviously, Lurie's going to think it was all him. Pederson thinks it was all him, and then we think it may have been Frank Wright. Collectively, see, this is the problem. Like, even now, what you said, Chrome, it's definitely probably is how it's going to happen. If they bring in a head coach, say for some reason they bring in a Brian Daboll or something like that, people who think Brian Daboll just got hot this year because Josh Allen got hot this year, go back and check his fucking resume. The dude's been coaching under stud motherfuckers his whole fucking time. But with that being said, you bring somebody like that in, and then you hand them a list of your potential defensive coordinator candidates. Like, listen, give this motherfucker a time. He has these relationships, unlike Doug. And this is one of the key things about Doug. And Chuck, you know this because we listen to the same shit. Doug he was a high school coach, OC for Kansas City, then a head coach. He didn't have the time and the NFL connections to really cultivate those relationships. So his coach pool that he could tap into of guys he could potentially tap on the shoulder is small. So Doug wanted control, but to fault Doug as well, what Jeff was looking for, he wanted something outside of what Doug was comfortable with and to look at other people. And Doug just didn't, for whatever reason, Doug didn't feel comfortable with that. So now when you look, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, and to your point, that it's kind of more of why, and again, maybe I'm putting too much stock in what Aikman said his conversation with Doug was, but again, that's a guy I respect, and he has no reason to lie about anything. No reason. The biggest thing with Doug,
biggest thing with Doug, what you said was you never saw any players get better under him. Doug's problem is, especially this year, not having an OC. He tried to do too much. He couldn't look at everything and see that players wasn't developing. He doesn't hold his coaches accountable. Like with Andy Reid, no matter what, you saw improvement. If we drafted a player, generally speaking, they may not have been the stud that we wanted them to be, but if they started off as a bum, somehow they ended up being a contributor at some point, in some form or fashion, where they did develop the skills somewhat. You never saw that with Doug. I'll be remiss to say you actually saw the biggest thing with Doug. Instead of improvement, you saw regression. Through players who have been here numerous years, you've seen players and talent levels regress with Doug. And I don't know what that comes from. I don't know if that's his inexperience as being a coach in the NFL environment, or that's just him, his personality.
And listen, I think that, and the track record is there, right? The Eagles will give you the autonomy to make your own decisions, but if it proves that it doesn't work, then we're going to step in and make our decisions, right? We saw it with Chip Kelly. Okay, having a week and a half or 2 weeks removed from it and looking at things and really analyzing things, because of that inexperience that you talked about, because of that lack of time in the league to cultivate those relationships throughout the league. I felt like Doug coming in as maybe a little bit of an inexperienced coach compared to most. I think they had to almost guide him to put guys around him. Jim Schwartz, a former head coach. Frank, well-respected, we knew was on the rise at that time. Whether he kept his job in 2016 because of Doug or not. But I think that they knew they had to do that. They then gave him the autonomy to pick his head coaching, the rest of his coaching staff over the next 2 years. And it failed miserably. Mike Rowe, failure. Not having an offensive coordinator, failure. I still say Jim Schwartz did enough in this league that if you have an above-average offense, they could win with Jim Schwartz as your defensive coordinator.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that he did an awful job to where he's really a huge blame in anything. If I look at the offensive side of the ball, and there wasn't enough. Deuce is a positive. Maybe Deuce should have got the coordinator job a couple years ago. I don't disagree with that. Over guys like Mike.
I said.
But it got to the point now where he wants to continue to do that. But listen, dude, we handed you the keys to the car, and guess what? It's going off the road the last couple of years. It's time now. We got to kind of reel it back in a little bit. You know, we're gonna let you have it, but only between these hours right now. Like, you know what I mean? And you know, again, kind of considering it. I'm not talking about necessarily Howie, but I don't mind Jeffrey Lurie stepping in and saying, this is not what I envisioned. I mean, it is his organization. You had your chance over the last couple of years to pick your coaches, and it didn't work out. I don't want these guys. I'm not paying these guys raises in my organization to do jobs that they didn't earn.
Yeah.
That's essentially what it came down to.
I think with what I will say, like, when it comes to the Super Bowl, like if you look at the offensive play calling in the system, let's I think we've all seen by now, and it's no secret, it's plain to eyes that Reich was the mastermind behind that scheme, behind the play calling and all that. But I do want to still give Doug credit, because Doug was still the one that was making in-game decisions. He was the leader that was getting these players to play. And then the thing that you have in support of him actually being a pretty good coach in terms of always making sure his players never quit, no matter what the situation was. The following 2 years after Reich left, the team made the playoffs still with banged up squads. So
also crappy divisions. Crappy division.
It doesn't matter.
They had the back end to the playoffs.
But it doesn't matter. Like he's still any team could have just been like, we don't care. Like we give up.
Right.
We can't do anything. I'm not saying Doug deserves most credit for this. I'm just saying, like, I still want to. I agree that Reich was the mastermind, but at the same time, Doug still deserves at least some credit, because I still think that in terms of a head coach, it goes beyond just. There's more to being a head coach than just calling plays and designing the offense. A lot more to it. That's why you see offensive coordinators who become head coaches, they don't make it, because there's more to it than that. So I think Doug has absolute leadership skills. He gets his players to play. He knows how to manage a game when he's invested. And so, like, it's I don't want to completely slander Doug and say that, you know, like he was lucky to win that Super Bowl. I think he's still, his hands and his fingerprints are still all over that Super Bowl win, and I would never discredit him. I think he'll be successful wherever he goes, because I think that wherever he goes, he's going to be allowed to have autonomy and control over his coaching staff. Now, he's going to have to make sure that they're better than guys like Mike Groh and Press Taylor, but I think a lot of the conflict was that there were people on the staff, like Scangarello, who he didn't want to begin with. And then, so we don't know how many people were Howie hires or they were Doug hires. So, you know, like when there are people there that you weren't on board to begin with, you're not going to have autonomy between everyone. Everyone's not going to be on the same page. And then you had the instance of there are too many voices, too many cooks in the kitchen, per se, when it came to the staff. So it was just it was a big mess. And I think wherever he goes, everything will be more structured. He'll have more say over his staff. The other thing, though, what I will say is that I do still believe it was the right time for him to go. Like Chrome hit on, the names he brought up, you just can't. Like I was pissed off when Deuce didn't get the OC job a couple years ago. Right. Deuce should have gotten it, not Mike Groh. And I stood by that, and I still stand by that. I think we're seeing that. And
he should have it this year. I would say he should have it this year. Even so, I would say free.
We'll get into that later. But to me, who knows how much better or worse the offense is with Deuce at OC. But I think that was the first sign of, hey, Doug, you're not really picking the right guys here under you. And then the whole Press Taylor thing, and it wasn't even just Press Taylor; it was a bunch of other guys that he wanted to promote, and just like they're saying it. This is not it. This is not what we want. So, like, I don't have an issue. Like, a lot of coworkers have been asking me, like, why did they fire Doug? It's too early. And the way I explained to them is that it's on at face value on the surface. Yeah, it looks questionable, but you have to understand that overall the dynamic between the coach and the front office, and then the coach not, just wanting to promote the wrong guys, and then the coach, the rumors of him not caring if he lost his job, and then the coach not being on the same page or not vouching or wanting to go forward with Carson, that's a big, big question mark. And I still support the decision to part ways with Doug, fire Doug, however you want to say it. I don't think he's the biggest problem with this team, but just because he's not the biggest problem with the team doesn't mean he wasn't still a problem that had to be fixed. So that's where I stand when it comes to Doug. I think it was the right move, and I still like him as a coach, but just not here anymore. I don't listen. It's time for him to go.
It's okay to be appreciative for the time that he had here, and to piggyback on what you just said. Right, it's not that he's the biggest issue. We all know that that's Howie. We don't even need to dispute that because we already know that. However, I still think that there was a big issue there, and it doesn't mean that by not addressing that issue now, it's not something that could end up accelerating even more so going in like with next year. Because the best thing this team can do is figure out who their quarterback is right now. And it sounds like to me they have it figured out that Carson Wentz is going to be their quarterback. Whether it's financial, whether they believe in him, regardless, the financial commitment they made to him shows already that that's the guy that they committed to because they believed in him. So you have to follow through on that at this point. That being said, sometimes it's just time to go, and sometimes it happens. It's a slow burn, and sometimes
it's quick.
It just blows up and takes off. The flame just grows real quick. This is one of those where it seems like one little spark and the house burned down pretty quick. But but to your point, Chucks, yeah, I think you had to do it now. Whether Howie's here or Howie's not here, very clear to me, the more and more as the week goes on, that this divorce or this split was an absolute necessity, if not even just for this immediate moment. Down the line, it's only going to get worse.
Right. And if you're the owner, if you're from Jeffrey Lurie's position and you have a vision of how you want your franchise or who you want at quarterback, and you've seen the quarterback that you just spent $128 million on regress to the point where he looked like he was a 7th round pick, you have to go to the coach and be like, how do we fix him? You can't come to me and say, well, I'd rather play Jalen Hurts. Like, wait a minute. You've seen this kid at 17 when he played at an elite level. He's regressed underneath of you, and you don't even want to put the time and effort into fixing him.
You want to jump ship now. Yeah, you immediately just want to move on. You're looking out for yourself.
That's a problem. That's an issue. Like, so from Jeffrey Lurie's perspective, Doug gave him no reason. He gave him every reason to fire him.
Listen, we're sitting here, we're talking about how Doug's a player's coach. That to me tells me Doug's for himself. That's looking out for your own ass. That this kid who's a franchise cornerstone at this point, probably the most important player in your franchise, that you're on your watch. Your watch, the wheels started to fall off, and you don't want to take out the tools to try to put the wheels back on the wagon. You just want to immediately go out and go shop for a new Red Ryder. Get the fuck out of here.
Question for you, right? Question. If you're Jeffrey Lurie and your time that you own the team, now this may rub a lot of feathers the wrong way, and I want people to listen to the context of what I'm saying. We all know Donovan is the greatest quarterback that this franchise has ever had. Have we ever seen from Donovan what we saw from Carson in 2017?
No.
Not even close.
Not even
Okay. So with that being said, you're Jeffrey Lurie as the owner. You're looking at single-handedly the best quarterback performance that you've since you've owned the team, and you have a coach who's ready to walk away from that, and who doesn't have a plan on how to fix that, or doesn't share the interest that that's the most important thing to do in this offseason.
Well, I would say that his first year with T.O. was pretty damn good.
It was pretty good, but not Carson good.
It was close. It wasn't that far off.
I'm talking about this just quarterback play in general.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, that year he was fired. I mean,
but at the same time, and it was like 13 years apart, so I take that into context. But look at the scores that team under Wentz was. They were piling up scores, blowing teams out. Those games back with T.O. and McNabb and Westbrook, there were some low scoring games. Again, different eras. I get that. 13 years. Different types of games, but I'm just saying, like, that's something you have to factor in. I still think, going comparison, I don't think we've ever seen a quarterback have a season the way Wentz did in 2017.
Then I'll say T.O.'s a Hall of Famer. Carson Wentz had no Hall of Fame wide receivers on this squad. So, granted, he had a better offensive line. I get that. And I'll say two different
the offensive lines are pretty – they were pretty good. Both teams – yeah.
He had – but look, I mean, he made
McNabb had a decent offensive line, but I would say Jason Peters is a Hall of Famer. Kelsey's a Hall of Famer, most likely.
But the big difference here, though, Jeff, is, he had a Hall of Famer in T.O., but he had then fucking garbage around him other than Chad Lewis.
He did.
To, as opposed to Carson Wentz, who had Zach Ertz.
But the question was season performance.
But he had a lot more weapons and outlets than what McNabb had. McNabb had one guy.
He had Chad Lewis. He had Brian Westbrook out of the backfield. I would say McNabb has some quality weapons.
That's three guys. One guy at each skill position. Look, tell me now. Let's go through what we had. We had Jay Ajayi and LeGarrette Blount in the backfield. Forget Corey Clement and that shit, whatever that was.
Yes.
Okay, but you can talk about you had Zach Ertz, which to me is better than Chad Lewis. I mean, pretty clear that he's better than Chad Lewis. Then you go in the wide receiving. You know, you had the best year that you were that Nelson Aguilar ever had. You had Alshon Jeffrey. You still had a legitimate bona fide number one wide receiver. Lot different.
The one thing Carson Wentz didn't do that McNabb did, he threw up in the Super Bowl.
By the way, former Super Bowl MVP, Torrey Smith.
Yeah. No, it was just a question to throw out there, but I'm just it's hard because we're in this, and you hear national people think that they talk about this situation like Troy Aikman. He hears this and they try to put their spin on it, and it's just a lot more to it. There's no easy way that you get to a point 3 years after winning the Super Bowl where everybody just walks away, and then Carson Wentz is a shell of himself. You just don't. I remember I keep going back to it. I remember saying earlier in the year when we were doing this, I said, Doug is coaching different. He coached different. And the thing is, we sat in here, we killed Ertz for going into the season, trying to ask for the money, and we talked about that before the first game. Look at how that played out through the whole season. He had his worst season ever. If Doug held this, and Lurie knew this, or Roseman knew this, and they carried this throughout the whole season and thought it was going to fix itself, and they'll be able to go back and meet and have a powwow, and then end up singing Kumbaya, that's flawed thinking. You know what I mean? That's flawed thinking, and now it has us in a position to where. Do you think that this is? Oh yeah, that's not going to happen. I didn't even want to entertain
that. That's a terrible trade-off, right? It's never going to happen.
But no, so now you're in a position to where you're picking a head coach, and this may not. I mean, dare I say, aren't there more other attractive landing spots than coming here? Yeah, I mean, we've heard the rumors that one executive said that this shit, the Eagles are a dumpster fire as long as Howie's here. You know what I mean? So, I mean, you still have him here. So, like, is this an attractive spot? Before we go around with the coaches, is this an attractive spot? Would you want this job?
No. I would say it's not the worst, but it's definitely not It's not top of the line. I'll say, granted, the negative parts thing, you have a GM that you can't deal with. You have a spineless owner with Jeffrey Lurie that enables allowing Howie to do. You're in cap hell right now. You're not going to be able to improve this roster. You're going to have to, you hardly have any input when it comes to your roster and staff. That pretty much Jeffrey's allowing Howie to handle all that. The one positive thing, though, is job security, because in Jeffrey Lurie's press conference, the way he made it seem, this is definitely a rebuild. He's basically tossing up next year when it comes to the cap space. They're basically tossing it up that whatever's going to happen is going to happen. And usually a rebuild, it sounds like it's going to take 3-4 years, which means Howie's probably going to be here at least 3 or 4 years. So the one thing a head coach is going to bring, or is going to come here, is they have job security, and there's not that many. There's only 32 jobs in the NFL as a head coach. So I don't feel the Eagles are going to get their first choice. When it comes to the big names like Salah and some of these other guys, they're going elsewhere. They're not coming to Philadelphia because they're going to want control over their with that whatever franchise that they join. But they're going to get a guy that's going to be a yes man, like someone said, and someone that wants to prove himself, like a Deuce, like maybe Jared Mayo, or some of these guys that Kellen Moore, who aren't getting as many looks with other teams as they are here. Because let's be real, I'll say Doug Pederson wasn't their first option. He was the 6th head coach that they interviewed before he came here. The only reason
McAdoo.
Yeah, the only reason he got the job is because of Andy. The only reason Chip Kelly came here is because he declined the Browns job and the Philly job originally before they were about to release those sanctions on Oregon. He's like, crap, I'm going to be out of a job or not going to be able to compete in college football, so I'm going to go elsewhere for 2 freaking years. And that was horrible. I would say the one thing I would say they need to make sure that they do is that they don't give Howie Roseman control in trying to find a head coach, because you saw the last 2 times. Granted, we got a Super Bowl with Doug, but he just wants too much control, which we brought up before. But I would say go back to the Doug Pederson point. I would say, do you really blame him? I would say, I kind of feel this was more than just the Carson Wentz agreement between him and Jeffrey Lurie. I would say they made him look like an ass ever since the end of last season. When they asked him the question, are your offensive coordinator, are your coaches returning? Is Mike Rowe returning as your offensive coordinator? And Doug Pederson went out on that stand and had his back for his guys and said, yes, they would back. And a day later, Jeffrey Lurie and Howie Roseman had him fire them. And then, of course, throughout the season, we all know, granted, it's all speculation when it comes to what, like you said, Doug's been coaching a lot differently this year. And I would say you kind of see that the speculation, the reports that Howie's basically having control of his game day rosters when it comes to the inactives and guys that he should play. Because why else would the hell they have Alshon Jeffrey not on the pup list? Or I forget who it was. Someone that was supposed to be on the pup list wasn't, and he ended up staying out longer than he was supposed to. Just because they're paying this guy $7-8 million, and salary should not have anything to do with it. If you hire a head coach, that guy should have control of his game day roster. And that's the one thing that's going to be discouraging to some of these guys. They don't want to have to argue with their GM. The GM handles the money and assembling a roster. When it comes to game day, that's your head coach's job. And Jeffrey Lurie needs to realize that, because that whole meeting, they made Doug look like an ass. They released the information about his coaching staff, and then they flew him to Florida to fire him. I don't blame the dude for getting pissed off. Honestly, I know the headline is he got fired. Doug quit.
Yeah,
Doug was tired of it.
Yeah, he quit it was fired by not trying.
Yeah.
Like, if your boss comes to you and say, hey, I need this report by such and such and such and such, or what improvements can we make? And you just say, and you just write it. You just write a report. You make a bar graph and you use fucking crayons or color markers. You give it to them. And it's like, what is this? You're like, that's the best I can do. Okay, thank you. Wish you well in your future endeavors. That's pretty much what Doug did, which is, we sit here and say they made Doug look like an ass, right? We've always known the Eagles to be the organization to, yes, they take chances. Yes, they're very progressive, but they're very manipulative at the same time into how they control the rhetoric and the narrative of a story. They do that all the time. So I'm not surprised by that, which is going to be harder to get an actual coach. I mean, me personally, I think we may end up with Kellen Moore and Chris Richard, which that may not be too fucking bad, to be honest with you. It may not be too bad. But with that being said, it's hard. Why is this organization the ones that have all these issues? And we can sit here and say it's really one guy. And they asked Lori the questions on Tuesday, Chucks. They said, how is this not on Roseman? Like, how are you not holding Roseman, Howie, to these same accountability standards that you seem to be holding Doug to? And Howie danced around it like Fred Flintstone throwing a bowling ball. And Howie's is it possible that Howie demotes Howie to another role and then he just lets John Dorsey pick players and have full autonomy over the personnel?
We can hope. Not going to happen.
I don't know. I don't know what he can do. Chucks, what can Roseman do to not be here anymore? Like, how can you perform this bad at his job, which he actually, I would say he probably has performed worse than Doug Pederson at his job.
Oh, no, he definitely has.
Yes, he's still here.
That's the whole thing. It's like Howie is absolutely the bigger problem, but at the same time, I have to also look at Lori and be like, you're the one enabling him.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you're the one. Like, not a single time was he critical of Howie during that press conference. And I was watching some of it, and I couldn't listen anymore because it was so bad. And I'm someone that I've always liked Lori for years. I always thought he was a good owner, and I thought he really cared about winning, and he was, he did his thing, and he was a good owner. I didn't have a problem with him, but seeing how defensive he is and how much of an advocate he is of Howie, it's starting to get disturbing. And you can be an advocate of Howie, but still be openly critical and fair to on Howie. But he wasn't. He could have the press conference. He could have just said, "Listen, it hasn't been good enough, but we have to make sure we do what we can to be better. Everything has to be better. Howie knows he has to be better than what he has been," and we would have accepted it. We'd have been like, "Okay, at least he's acknowledging it."
Never.
You never heard that. It was always tiptoeing and giving these nonsensical answers that didn't make much sense. And so Lori is hand in hand right now with Howie in terms of like the blame. And backtracking a little bit when it comes to Doug and can you blame him? I can't. What I was alluding to before is that like he doesn't have control over his staff, and he got tired of Howie telling him what to do, and that's understandable. That's completely understandable. I get that, like, he was going to get angered because he doesn't have control over his staff. I don't blame him in that regard, but what I do blame him is that you take that. I don't like the fact that he's the way he went out, because if he did that intentionally, like if he intentionally sabotaged his position, then I'm not a fan of that. I'm not a fan of that. And so that's what I don't agree with Doug's part. But the other thing that I want to bring up is that, okay, the main thing that Troy Aikman said in that article or whatever is that
it was an interview with Michael Irvin.
So in that interview, Aikman said that Doug left the big departure was because Doug wanted to move forward with Hurts and not Wentz. So the big question is, guys, what the heck happened for Doug to not be in Wentz's corner anymore? What happened that made it that bad? And so I'm thinking about it. Last night I slept on it. This morning thinking about it some more. And it's like we really have to also look not just at Doug, but are all those rumors, because it's starting to look like they're true. All those rumors and reports of Wentz not being coachable, how legitimate are they? And how bad is it? Is it more on Carson because he's not accepting coaching and he's stubborn? Or is it more on Doug and the coaches because they're just not good coaches and Wentz didn't like how they were coaching him? I do not know the answers to either of those questions. I wish I did, but those are the real nitty-gritty questions we kind of have to look at when it comes to fixing Carson, because if he's not going to be coachable to any coach, then you're not going to be able to fix him. He has to be able to accept coaching, depending on who we hire. If he's not, it's going to be irrelevant. Whomever we hire, whoever we bring in. So you have to look at that, but then you also have to hope that it's more of Carson just being like, this isn't going to help. I'm hoping that he just didn't like what Doug and Press were telling him, or how they were coaching him, and that it wasn't up to par to what Wentz believed, and that's why he was uncoachable. So that's going to be big, and if we're going to look to fix Carson, we have to make sure that he's accepting coaching from whoever is the next coach.
Yeah, and I would say to go back to the whole Lurie situation, if he wants Wentz to be his guy, and he wants him to be, why the hell didn't he just say that in the press conference? I would say he was asked about it in the press conference, is Carson Wentz coming back next year? And he comes out and says that it's not the owner's decision. I get it. You want to see who your head coach and who maybe they prefer, but let's be real. Carson Wentz is returning next season. With that contract, no one is going to give you any type of decent compensation for him. You're already invested with him. You're going to have to work around him, which that's probably the reason I would say it could, like you brought up, a major reason from what Doug told Troy, because he probably want to move on with Jalen Hurts. He probably felt he can move on with Jalen Hurts that fit his system a little bit better, and that he saw something in him in those 4 games, but. I don't know. I would say this whole thing is just an absolute mess. I say and I agree with you. I would say you have to look at Jeffrey Lurie. I would say we can blame Howie, we can blame Doug for this, but ultimately it starts at the top with your owner. And when he comes out and makes stupid ass comments in his press conference, like you brought up, I would say he was asked about Howie and drafting, and he basically started talking about the success of this franchise from 20 freaking years ago, that them being in the NFC Championship game and this and that. That had nothing to do with freaking Howie. Howie didn't be the GM until years later. He was the freaking intern getting Joe Banner's coffee. Ray Rhodes is the one that drafted Jeremiah Trotter, Brian Dawkins, Trey Thomas. Andy Reid's the one that brought in, drafted Don McNabb, signed John Runyon, and was the reason for your success. Not Howie Roseman. So what the hell did that comment have to do with absolutely anything in regards to Howie Roseman and his drafting? And then you come out and say, I would say basically it's not our fault that the guys we wanted were taken before us. So you want to take a random guy like Marcus Smith or Jalen Reagor or whoever else those years? I say if your main guy is gone, you better have a freaking good backup plan, not just draft a guy just to draft a guy, which I would say, and another thing, I would say they made Doug look like an ass. I don't know if you guys saw the reports, but now there's reports coming out that it was Doug Pederson that won Jalen Reagor, and Howie and the scouts wanted Jefferson. Dude, they're just kicking a dog when it's down. The dude's out of here, and you're still trying to make him look like an ass in front of the franchise and the organization when he's not here to defend himself. That's a black guy on your organization. That's a black guy on Jeffrey Lurie. And when we talk about these coaching candidates, whether they want to come here or not, they're going to look at that. They're going to look how they treated the guy that brought a Vince Lombardi trophy to the city of Philadelphia. And kicked him out on the curb because he didn't want to agree with the owner and an egotistical GM.
And it's the first Super Bowl, the first and only Super Bowl.
And the first one we won for a while.
Yeah, I mean, it may not change until Howie's going. And the thing is, I wonder what's different. What's different from now from when Chip had it? When Chip faltered, Jeffrey Lurie said to him, you have full autonomy. This is your show. If it doesn't work, we make a move. Chip didn't win a Super Bowl. Chip didn't win a playoff game. What was it about Doug that he didn't get the same respect? Not to say that me and Chuck will sit here and tell you his plan was flawed. Who he had to replace certain people and who he wanted to promote. I didn't agree with. I'm pretty sure Chuck didn't agree with. But at the same time, it could be said that, okay, Jeffrey could have said, all right, This is what we'll do. We'll do it your way and see what happens. You know you're already in cap hell for next year anyway. Now, I mean, the NFL turnaround, you could turn it. All it really needs is one good year that you have cap space, and then you have a decent draft, and things can change around for your organization. But I don't know what Doug did or didn't do to not to warrant that same kind of grace period. There's more going on to the story. I don't know how Lurie can sit here and not feel the heat and the outside noise and inside noise from the job that Howie has done, and really look himself in the mirror and say that Howie did a good job, or Howie's deserving of the spot that he has, or Howie still has the same type of credence that he had before. And to be honest with you, I don't think he does, because every time we hear, as soon as Joe Douglas left, John Dorsey's been here, or Scott McLuhan has been here. There's always someone advising. However, whatever it is to really get Howie to buy in, he doesn't have that consultative GM mind yet to push him over the top to not take a Jalen Hurts in the second round, and not to pass on Jalen, I don't want to run so hard, Rager, and take Justin Jefferson. You feel what I'm saying? The talent's there with Rager. I get it, but if you never manifest that talent, then you got to have that dog. You got to have that want to. And with Rager right now, I don't know. I mean, even to this comment, I don't know that Doug's game plan has sucked. I mean, I feel like his offense needs to be run a certain way, and Carson strikes me as this is Carson. He's a passive aggressive type A personality. He is what Brady is, Breeze is in mindset, just not extrovert with it. You don't see it.
That's fair. I think I would agree with that.
He's very introverted, but that's the way he feels about himself. It's that passive aggressive type of cocky. And you have to, like Lurie, you have to fix him. Like, that's the most important part. And I don't know what they can do. I mean, Brian Daboll could come in potentially, but he's going to want his own coaches. What's not being talked about, and what we've heard from Carson, is Carson doesn't take the want to go off and get right in the offseason. Well, listen, I mean, hey, in his defense, he was hurt and you had a pandemic. But at the same time, I mean, when Josh Allen lost in the playoffs last year, he was picking up the phone, trying to pick the mind of Steve Young, trying to pick the mind of Aaron Rodgers, trying to pick the mind of these great quarterbacks. Well, listen, Carson had a concussion. Not saying that he couldn't do that eventually down the road, but the situation is different. But now, with obviously Lurie choosing Carson over Doug, supposedly, we'll never know the fucking truth.
Nope.
Now it's really all on Carson now.
Well, you just better hope that he still even wants to come back. I would say, granted, I would say they're pretty much stuck with him because of the contract, but we don't know if he, after all this, despite Doug not being here, if he wants to come back to this organization after he was treated. And also the fact, I would say, granted, we don't know behind the scenes, nothing has been officially reported yet, but if Carson's your guy, wouldn't you think Howie and Jeffrey would consult with Carson and see who maybe he wants to try to bring in here? Right. I would say if he's your franchise quarterback and you want to fix him and build around him, don't you think if you're going to bring an offensive-minded coach, that's if they sign or a head coach that has an offensive mind, that they would ask their franchise quarterback that they're paying all this money who he wants to work with and who he feels he's going to be able to gel with. We don't know that because, granted, we don't know what's been reported, but I don't know. I just kind of feel this is going to be an extremely long process. Like Lurie said, it's not something we're going to rush, which makes me think they're eyeing someone that they're waiting to see how the playoffs pan out and see who makes the Super Bowl. Because let's be real, they're probably going to hire someone from either the Andy Reid tree or someone, I would say the guys that they wanted all take jobs elsewhere because we took our sweet old time, and Deuce Staley is going to be the head coach, and they're going to promote to this fan base saying all along that Deuce was their number one choice and Deuce was their guy and that he's deserved this opportunity just because he's been in this organization and it's probably someone that they can whip around to do what they want as the head coach.
Well, the thing with Deuce, though, Deuce strikes me. And remember, because once he left here, he played for Pittsburgh. I think he got his coaching career somewhat started in Pittsburgh as well. That's
I think so.
Completely different run organization compared to the Eagles. Deuce strikes me as a guy who would take input, but I think Deuce would be more of a manager. That's why I love guys like Mike Tomlin. I love guys like John Harbaugh. These guys just know how. Listen, this is what I'm good at. I need people around me to be good at the shit that I'm to be good at the stuff that I'm not, and I'm better at the stuff that they're weak at. You feel what I'm saying? Like to run the day to day. That's what Deuce could be in a figurehead, and Deuce potentially can handle this media in this town and really hold his own and be his own man. Outwardly, inwardly, we will never know. You feel what I'm saying? Like we don't.
Yeah.
I feel like the Eagles is ran like the fucking Costa Nostra. You feel what I'm saying? Like you don't know who's doing what, who's pulling what strings, what dirt this person has. Because I'll sit here and screaming for the rooftops. No GM in any of the 4 major sports. I would even go through any CEO or whoever's under CEO, whoever's job it is to pick the vice president, gets to do that 3 to 4 times in a 10-year period and still keep their job. To get demoted once and then to come back. Like I don't know what it is. It's almost more fascinating than to Jerry Jones and whatever relationship he has with Stephen Jones, or where we saw with Daniel Snyder and Bruce Allen. It's such a weird dynamic. I really, in the history of sports, when it comes to front offices, I've never seen this. Maybe with Steinbrenner, he kept bringing back. What was the coach's name for that coached the Yankees? Like he managed the Yankees like 5 times. Was it Billy Martin? Is that his name?
I don't know.
I don't know.
But he was a coach. He was a manager of the Yankees. Got fired. They would bring him back. Got fired. Bring him back. Like it happened like 3 or 4 times. This is such a weird dynamic to where it's so public to what you can see and how things could be better. But it seems like Jeff knows that they could be better at picking players, but at the same time, he wants to keep Howie around for some reason. So is it really
Howie has some
enabling Howie to do it? Or like, I feel like now, what if Howie wanted to leave? Do you think Jeff would let him leave? Like, I'm starting to think.
I don't know anymore. I
feel like Jeff needs Howie more than Howie needs Jeff. I don't know what the structure of this ownership group is anymore. I don't know. I thought I knew. Listen, Lori, if you watch this, I thought I knew you. Okay? I thought I knew you. I'm talking to the camera. It's up here. I thought I knew you, Jeff. But yet, I feel like I don't know you at all. It's honest.
No, I hear you. Like I said earlier, I used to be I've always liked Lori, but right now it's really hard to like him. And again, I'm going to backtrack a little bit. We talked about this smear campaign that they're trying to put on Doug about him wanting Reagor. That's something we knew about weeks ago. Okay, yeah. Like the guys at Inside the Birds, Jeff Mosher, friend of the show on here a couple times already. Him and Kaplan, they've said it, and all the reporters have said that that's old news. We know that Roseman asked, and the scout team wanted Jefferson, while the coaches wanted Reagor because they felt like Reagor was a benefit for what they wanted to do.
Yeah, they felt Jefferson was
that's a whole other thing that makes me so mad is if you're going to pick a guy in Reagor because you felt he was a better fit for what you wanted to do, and then this season you don't use him right, what's going on? Yeah. Why? Like, it's maddening. It's maddening, and I'm not making excuses for Reagor. Reagor played like crap, and his bad attitude needs to stop. But at the same time, you have a certain skill set in Reagor, and you claim that you had a game plan for him, and then we didn't see anything of that in this past season. At the same time, we already knew that the fact that they're going to try to come out and say, "Oh yeah, that was all Doug's fault." Like, stop it, Howie. You were the one with final say. Everyone knows that. So regardless of who wanted who, it was your decision to say, "I'm going to listen to my coaches and I'm going to pick Reagor." That's on you. That's not on Doug. That's on you. you get the credit when you make a good pick, which is rare, and you get the blame when it's a bad pick, which is often. So I don't want to hear that. I saw that, and that ticked me off because yes, we already knew this stuff, but for them to try to come out with it now and say, "Oh, the regular pick, that was all Doug. That's part of the reason why we fired him." No, I don't care, Roseman. You still get the blame. You still get the blame. So it's maddening, and I do not know. You know, you asked this to me a while ago now, Pete, and I'm going to answer it just now. But I think the only hope is twofold right now. Well, threefold. One, obviously, we get a coach that can fix Carson. Okay, that's the first step. Two, I think that whomever they bring in as coach, I'm hoping they give him some autonomy with his coaching staff, and they give him leeway. Like, I hope that the Doug thing, I don't know if it is, but I'm hoping that the Doug thing was just like a one-time thing with Doug. Like, hey, like they never believed in him to begin with, therefore they wanted control over the staff. So I'm hoping the guy they pick next is someone like, hey, we trust him as a coach. We're going to let him pick his staff and have control, yada, yada, yada. So that's two. The last thing is I really hope that John Dorsey is going to have a lot of say, like enough to the point where he's almost the one kind of like writing on the name on the slip, right, showing it to Howie and being like, elbow, like, you're picking this guy. You know, don't think about it. You're picking this guy. Like, I hope that's his influence because Dorsey, and I said it last week, Dorsey's strength is talent evaluation. He's not the best, but he's up there. He's found some really, really great prospects. So I'm hoping and praying that all three work out and that Dorsey does have a significant role here. But if it's just more of like an advisor, you know, just someone they're just going to ask every once in a while for certain things, that doesn't bode well. That doesn't give me a lot of confidence.
No, not at all. I mean, I just don't know. We see the comment from Yusef here. He says the situation up there reminds me of the last 10 years with Dan Snyder and Bruce Allen. And he said, let me tell you, it was a long 10 years. It's been more. The thing is, it's been longer than 10 years here. It's been longer than 10. Howie's been here since 2003 in some form or fashion. So Jeffrey Lurie looks at this kid like he didn't grew up with me. You feel what I'm saying? Like if his kid was born in 2003, Jeffrey and Howie have been around since Howie's kid to graduate high school is. Like that's a long time, bro. And if we go around now, I know we kind of talked about it before. Let's just look at the head coaching openings, and then which one is more? If you're a head coaching candidate, where would you go, here or there? So look at Detroit. What's more attractive?
Probably Detroit.
Okay. I know they just hired a new GM today. I don't know his name, but I think he's the college scouting director from the Rams, I believe. Yeah. So we got Detroit. All right, Jacksonville's already taken up. That's Urban Meyer.
That's still a bit more appealing. They have the first overall pick, so
right.
Cap room.
So all right, toss up here. The Chargers.
They are jumping rebel.
Okay.
And they've got talent on that defense.
Okay.
Yeah.
The New York Jets.
Direction.
Huh?
The Jets.
See, that's tricky.
I think the Jets and the Eagles are probably worse A, worse B. They're almost pretty much like tied. I say, granted, the Jets have the second or I forget what number pick they have. They have two.
Yes.
Yeah. So you have the second overall pick. I would say so. You have a lot of flexibility. What you can do. Granted, I would say Trevor Lawrence is probably gonna be off the board first. So depending who they bring in there, I would say they have a lot of different options, but. I would say it's all going to depend if the owner wants them to keep going with Sam Darnold or not. But still, I would say the Jets probably be the one worse than the Eagles out of all the ones on the list.
Houston Texans.
I think Texans are worse.
You think Texans? I would say I understand they're in turmoil, but at least you have a franchise quarterback there with Deshaun Watson
that doesn't want to be there.
Yeah, he's unhappy.
I understand he's unhappy, but I feel if they get the right coach in there, he might.
I don't know. From what I've been hearing, it's not about the coach. It's about the organization and the
Oh yeah, he's pissed at the organization, but
Yeah.
a new coach might smooth it over a little bit. I understand he was pissed off that they like I brought up about Carson. If I would say the franchise quarterback, he wants to have a say on who they bring in here. He doesn't want to waste the prime of his career in the tank in Houston. But I'll say if he stays, Houston, I feel is a better option. If not, then yeah.
One thing about Deshaun, and it's kind of can say this about Dak too, but this is even more so for Deshaun. He didn't fucking have to sign it.
No,
he didn't have to sign it.
Same with Carson.
Yeah, well, but Carson is a little. I mean, but Deshaun didn't have to sign his contract. He knew what it was. He knew what it was. You know what I mean? So you didn't have to take the money. You would have got paid ridiculous amounts of money on the open market. A team may still end up giving 4 or 5 ones for him. Listen, I know Chrome is off right now, and I know this is his team. But listen, bitch, if I'm Miami, all them picks you gave us, bitch, have them back plus ours. You feel what I'm saying? You want the number 3? Have that. Take ours, bitch. Take them all. Everything you gave back, everything you gave us last year, you can have them back, and send us to Sean, and to see what you get. But all right, so Atlanta Falcons.
I feel Atlanta right now, but I would say if this was a couple of years later, then probably I would say Philly. I would say you have an aging Matt Ryan. Julio Jones is up there in age as well. So they only have a couple more years, I feel, to try to contend before they start a rebuild there in Atlanta. But I
think they're in a rebuild now. I'd say Philly is worse than Atlanta. Atlanta, you still got Calvin Ridley. You're in a better cap situation. The owner, Arthur Blank, is a great owner.
Yeah.
So I would definitely pick Atlanta over Philly.
Okay. So essentially, the only job that we're saying is better
is Houston.
So Jeff said Houston's better than Philly, but I think the one that you both agreed on was the Jets.
Yeah.
The Jets are a worse destination than the Eagles. So that puts you number 6 out of 7. So what is the sell package that Lurie and Roseman are going to put out there to try to get someone to get here? I think the biggest thing they're going to use is Carson.
Yep.
Carson, but that's also tough because he's coming off of his worst year. So you can also the Carson thing depends on who you're bringing in. It depends on the guy. It depends on what their viewpoint of Carson is. If they view Carson as a top 10 quarterback talent that they can fix, then that's a selling point. But then you also can't blame someone who's going to come in and be like, yeah, I'm not. He's been too inconsistent ever since 2017, and 2020 was bad, and all this stuff about him not being coachable. Yeah, I don't like that. That's not a. So it can go either way depending on the person. So I don't know. I think that's the thing. There's not much to sell. I'm trying to scrape and for selling points. I think one of the things you can say is that this is one of the better markets in the league. And if you lose miserably. But if you win and you're successful, you're going to be one of the biggest names in football across the country. You're going to be immortalized essentially. So that the whole market thing is probably, to me, that's the biggest selling point. But that's pretty bad when you have to resort to that as your only selling point, your main selling point. You don't have anything else on the team. I mean, the guys that we like on the roster, the young guys, Miles Sanders, he hasn't proven to be elite yet. He's on the come up, but he hasn't proven to be elite yet. Dallas Goedert, another one, hasn't proven to be elite yet. He's hurt too much. Hurts is on the way out. You have an aging offensive line. Reagor hasn't shown anything as a wide receiver.
Shitty defense.
There's nothing on the defensive side. Darius Slay and Cox are your best defensive players, but they're not like young guys you can groom. There's nothing else for me that I would think you would be able to sell to someone other than that. Hey, if you're able to turn this franchise around, your name is going to be huge. You're going to get publicity, national games, and national spotlight because we're one of the biggest markets in the league. So that's all I got. I don't know.
major market, and there's only 32 jobs in the NFL, which is why a lot of these names like Arthur Smith, Saleh, some of these other names are getting multiple second, third interviews with other teams. They're not coming here. So if you had any hope of any of these major sought-out guys coming to Philadelphia, it's not happening. That's why I kind of feel they're going to go with one of these guys that ain't getting a lot of looks, like the Kellen Moores, the Deuce Staley, the Gerard Mayo, say, hey, look, this is probably your only opportunity to interview for a head coaching job, and it's probably gonna be, might be your only opportunity to get a head coaching job, depending on what happens in the future. So take this job. You're the guy in charge, and let us assemble your roster, because I would say that, like you guys brought up before, they don't have the relationships, and they don't know how to probably assemble a coaching staff. And it basically makes everyone happy in the organization. It makes Howie happy because he has control. He can assemble what guys him and Jeffrey feel is best for this city and the best that fits this team, and just get a guy to be the head coach. I don't see any of these big names coming here whatsoever.
Yeah. So real quick, a couple questions. Don asked a while ago. He said, "If you're the Jags, are you trading the number 1 pick for Deshaun Watson?" I'm saying no.
I'm saying no. Go ahead.
I'm saying no because I think everyone views Trevor Lawrence as big as sure thing as a prospect as you can go, and you want to be able to build your young QB for the next few years. But I think that if at the same time, if it's only your first overall pick and that's it, that is pretty much a steal for Watson, who is already a proven top 5 quarterback in the league, and he's not exactly old. So it can go either way. Gun in my head, no. I'd say no by like a smidgen.
Yeah, I mean, if I'm Urban Meyer, I'm not doing that because I got a guy coming in, the number 1 overall pick. We got cap space. There's no expectations really in Jacksonville. It's not a big media market. You don't want to draw that extra heat to yourself when and coming in right from the start. Eric Serrato also asked, I don't need to put it up. He said he feels Detroit and Houston are a better landing spot. And this is my thing, and I'll say this. To me, I think that this job is more attractive than the Jets, the Lions, and Houston. And the reason why is solely because you look at our division. If you look at Detroit, Green Bay Packers, Minnesota Vikings, Chicago Bears are all better than you. You're further away from winning your division.
Good point. That's a fair point.
Yeah. Houston is the same thing. You got Indy, who's in a rise. You don't know what Jacksonville is going to be. You know what I mean? But you got Tennessee as well. And with the Jets, you got the Bills and the Patriots to bounce back, and you saw what the Dolphins did. So you're further away from winning. You have more time. I think with the Eagles' position, it's more attractive for that reason, but I also think you have a less amount of time to be successful. But you also have Carson as a selling point because we said this before. In this league, in this inner circle that the NFL itself is, all these coaches are going to take it to task to come in and fix Carson. They see how broken he is from what he was. So they're going to take it as a challenge to I'm the one that can fix him. I'm the one that can fix him. I'm the one that can fix him. I'm the one that can make him right. I can get him back to 2017. And if you're the coach that comes in and does it, for one, you're going to be heralded, and his fan base is going to love you, even if the detractors from Carson, because this is fucking the Rocky Town. Am I lying? You saw Rocky fucking Balboa. Carson is not down. It's Rocky 1. It's Rocky 3 after the Clubber Lang fight. No chance. You feel what I'm saying? Everybody's counting Carson out. Everybody right now, even us to a point, are counting the Eagles out. I mean, dare I say it can't get any fucking worse than what it was this year in the position that they're in right now?
Not much worse, no.
You see what I'm saying? So
yeah,
everything is on the way up. It's only one fucking direction that you can go.
I get it.
Even if they win 7 games next year, that's more of an improvement. And then you don't have the cap space. So this time next year, we'll be having more to look forward to coming into free agency. But for those reasons, 7 wins next year may win you this fucking division. We don't know what Dak is going to be when he comes back. If he comes back there, you don't. The Giants still have questions at quarterback. don't even get me fucking started on Washington. Don't even get me started on why you had some dude out there that last name rhymes with Meineke, a car care center. You feel what I'm saying? Like, I don't even want to start. I don't even want to think about that shit. So, and then you got the Eagles, and dare I say, either Hurts or Wentz is a better. I'd rather be in that QB situation where they're both healthy and creating a healthy competition than any of the other 3 NFC East teams quarterback situation, because you don't know what Dak is going to be. One of the key things about Dak was his legs. You don't know what that ankle is going to be when he comes back.
Nope. Or if he's going to even want to come back.
How long it's going to take for him to be
right. And fam, let us know if you just now joined us. We've been rocking for about an hour and 20 minutes. The poll question was: the next Eagles head coach must be offensive minded. Agree or disagree? Drop your comments in the chat form, whether you're on YouTube, Twitch, Facebook, Periscope. We appreciate you rocking with us. I don't know how many views we got, but we appreciate you being here, taking your time out on a Thursday night. But let's go around some Eagles awards, if you have any.
One thing I'm gonna. I know Prism said this. Micah Parsons needs to be the pick and a stud in the middle of the field. Quickest way to get good again is to get better defensively. Best offense is a good defense. I disagree, Prism. Parsons is a stud linebacker, definitely the best linebacker, off-ball linebacker, I should specify, in the draft. It's not a question.
No doubt.
When you're talking about a draft, you have to consider positional value. There are 5 prime positions in the league. You got quarterback, offensive tackle, wide receiver, corner, and edge. Okay, so those are the 5 prime positions, premium positions. You cannot take a linebacker in the top 10, right? Like that's not like it. You guys know me. I'm like the running back guy. I love running backs. Unless they are like a Saquon Barkley, I'm not taking a running back in the top 5 to 10. The value for a running back is just it's not up there. Same thing with a linebacker. You got to consider impact of premium positions. So I'm not taking a linebacker that early. It has to be in when you line up the premium positions along with their needs. It's got to be either corner or wide receiver. They're going to pick top 10. So I'm good with either. And I've said this for weeks now. I'm good with Chase. I'm good with Devontae Smith. I'm good with Surtain. So those are my 3. That if they're going to stay at 6, if they're going to trade down a little bit, those are still my 3. They could be Surtain could still be there at top 10. If you trade down to like 9, he could still be there at 9. Pick Surtain. So that's the thing. People have to realize premium positions when it comes to draft.
The only thing I would say to that is go back and look at LSU versus Bama last year. I think Surtain benefited a lot from people just being scared of his fucking side of the field and just not being thrown to. It's hard to get a gauge on how and that's the thing in this league, especially coming as a rookie next year. You're going to get tested at the DB position, and even the best DBs get beat. A la DK Metcalf versus Jalen Ramsey last Saturday. There was plays where Jalen Ramsey, you know what I mean? So
and against Slay. I'll say when he played us, he was torching us. But I'll say if you get the right DC in here and the right defensive-minded coach, I feel you have a better chance of developing a guy like Surtain. And plus, he's obviously better than the guys we already have here. He's better than Vontae Maddox, Nicole Roby Coleman. What's the worst you can do? At least you have a young prospect, and he's a guy that a lot of people have as a top 10 pick on people's radar, rather than just some Joe Schmo miraculously just because you want to be smarter than someone. So at least the fan base would feel a little bit more comfortable picking Surtain than picking someone else and passing on him. We know the drill.
Right. Like for me, it's difficult to pass up on baby Julio. And I think that's what Jamar Chase is going to be.
I agree.
That's me. You just don't do that. He may not be the most refined route runner, but he attacks the ball. He's explosive after the play. It's too many times I've seen him running away from people and blowing them up. So that's just me. But I really don't even know if the one Eagles award I could come up with is the best disappearing act of the Eagles MVP 2020 NFL season.
I just wrote a list of different awards. We can choose which ones you want to name. They're just like generic ones.
Okay.
So we talked. Obviously team MVP, team LVP, so least valuable player, best offensive player, best defensive player, biggest surprise, biggest disappointment, rookie of the year, either side of the ball, the most improved, and the best moment. So, I mean, like, pick one, pick a couple, and then just name. I guess just say who you would pick, which one stand out. If you want to make an award and just name it, then yeah, go ahead.
No, so I mean, from that list, let's start off with the LVP, least valuable player this year.
So I'm gonna say, because I already have so and so in another award for least valuable player. I'm gonna go Jason Peters, like at left tackle. Like, it's talk about like a huge disappointment.
Yeah, he was a huge disappointment. I would say he was a guy that basically held this organization with a gun to its head for him to play left tackle, where he's made his money here for almost a decade. So, and then the tank or the play like how he did as a major disappointment, which I wasn't too surprised. I'll say the dude's 38 years old. There was no way in hell he's gonna be able to perform the way he did, or that he used to. But for my least valuable player, I put Nicole Roby-Coleman. The fact that I would say he was hyped up so much this offseason as one of the best slot corners in free agency and in this league, and he was going to help shut down the opposing team's passing game. There was almost him and Nate Gary, probably the only two guys that we kept on seeing the back of their jerseys more than anyone on this team this season. So I would say he had a rough year. He was targeted 54 times, gave up 42 catches, which is a percentage about 78% for 490 yards and 3 touchdowns. So they need to move. He better not be back next year.
Everyone, like, I don't know many people. I'd say, like, based on social media and what I've heard, like 90% of Eagles fans thought NRC was going to at least be solid.
Yes.
Like, it
was a good signing.
Yeah.
It was a good signing, and then we definitely did not get the best.
Yeah.
So Moore and McCabe, actually, that's a strong runner. That's a strong runner, Jake Elliott.
Yeah.
Least valuable player, I have to, because if the play was opposite, it may be the most valuable player, and it's the play that affects the team the most. And I'm gonna have to say Carson. I'm gonna have to go Carson.
A disappointment.
You just can't do that, and that you can't play the quarterback position that way and get in a rut and try to force your way out of it. And it's the most detrimental. Bad quarterback play in this league is the most detrimental to your team. It's the most detrimental to your team, week in and week out. I mean, we've been beating the drum Carson's flaws for the last 14, 16 weeks, really. You know what I mean? The season's been over 2 weeks ago, so that just goes to show what we saw. So I definitely don't want to stump a mud hole in it, but Carson is my least valuable player.
I had him as biggest disappointment. That's why I LVP. So they're very similar. It goes hand in hand. But yeah, he was my biggest disappointment.
Okay, so rookie of the year for the Philadelphia Eagles, I'm gonna say Alex Singleton. That's mine. I mean, Canadian football player. I know he's older, getting a chance in the league. I never want to see Nate Gary again. Nate Gary become the linebackers coach. Since you're so smart mentally, you don't make any mistakes. You just don't have the physical ability to do it. But I'm gonna go Singleton. Just he's a tackle machine. He may get out of play sometimes, but I think he plays the linebacker position with the way we want to see it be played in this area. For this fan base, that's how you play. That's how we want us. We want to see the long hair flying around. The last time we saw it was Casey Matthews, who couldn't stay on the damn field. People forget about him. Or did he go to Oregon too? I forget. He came from Oregon right with Chip. Casey Matthews, if I'm not mistaken, Clay's brother.
Casey Matthews.
Yeah.
Casey Matthews came from Oregon.
But now this guy with long hair can actually somewhat play. Can we be better? Yes, we can be better. But I think he is a linebacker, a starting caliber linebacker in this league. And that's hard to say about any rookies on this team being able to contribute and having confidence in moving forward in 2021.
Yeah. you said that's for Rookie of the Year. I think my pick for Rookie of the Year would be obvious, would be Hurts.
Okay.
Just because like he came in and he played well for 2.5 games. So I can't. And that's
That I think
Singleton is a good choice, but yeah, I would put just Hurts, despite his flaws.
Yeah, I'll say Singleton was my defensive rookie. I would say offensive rookie was definitely Hurts. I would say he made it a little bit more competitive, I felt. And you have to remember, I would say he had no real OC in 4 games. He had a banged up offensive line, and he had a garbage wide receiver for talent. So I would say he did pretty well with what he had to work with. And granted, none of our other rookies really showed up. Jalen Reagor, who was our first round pick, he was a freaking major bust in his rookie year. So there's really no one else I would say that I just feel is deserving of offensive rookie on our team.
Yeah, there's not the slim pickings.
Yeah.
I had for biggest surprise was Mailata. I also had him for most improved. I mean, Mailata, you're talking about like a project that from a few years ago. None of us really expected him to really, except for Chrome. Chrome's going to say it. While I was like cautiously optimistic, like give him time, and we'll see. He's got the tools, but he's never played friggin' football, so you got to give him time. But I would put him as biggest surprise, just because going into preseason or training camp, we didn't expect him to be in the spot he was going to be in.
Right.
Like we thought it was going to be Dillard, and then we brought in Peters. So we didn't expect Mailata to end up being the starter, but now look what he's done, and he's surprised everyone with his play. He's still improving, but he's shown that like already he's already like a capable left tackle, and he still could improve. Well, he still will improve, I think. So I like that a lot, and obviously another one too. I can't go without saying, big. I can't say he's a big surprise because Pete, I know you and I were high on him, and we got made fun of going into the season by a few people. But to other people, the biggest surprise should be Josh Sweat.
Yes.
Because, I've been a Sweat fan.
Mine.
I've been a Sweat fan since he was a prospect in the draft. I loved that we got him in the 4th round.
Right.
And he's finally putting it together. I think he's the reason. Like, I'm putting because of Sweat. I don't bring Barnett back because finances and everything like that.
Yeah.
To me, Sweat is the guy. Should be the guy. Not that not that he should play full-time snaps. I still think you have to rotate him with someone, but he should at least be the starter and then rotate. Get like 60, 70% of the snaps.
Yeah, he's definitely not a 3-down defensive lineman for you. But yeah, I would say Sweat was my dude as most surprised. For a guy that was put in the rotation and he was 3rd on your team in sacks with 3.5 sacks and 3 forced fumbles, I would say I expected him to play well, but I don't know if I expected him to live up to playing that well.
Right.
So I would say Sweat was definitely my big surprise. Okay. I will give you the credit. I will bow down to you.
And Pete did. We called it. We got made fun of so much. Like people teased us, but we called it. We were high on Sweat.
If he actually had like 2 good knees, oh God.
Oh, he'd be a monster.
Yeah. He could have double-digit sacks.
Surprise for me, I would have to say Jalen Hurts. I didn't know what to expect. For me, from Jalen Hurts, especially from the quarterback play of what we saw and how bad that offensive line was, I had no expectations coming in whatsoever at all. You know what I mean? So for me, it's definitely Jalen Hurts. Yeah, I mean, just that's one on the fly. Yeah, no, I mean, we saw with the offensive line, and it was so disruptive. I mean, 15 out of 16 games? We had 15 different combinations.
Yeah,
of offensive line. So, I mean, to what he was able to do to give us some type of lightning in a bottle. Yeah, no, and I'm not missing Darby. Steelers fans won. What's up? Your team is home with us. I mean, they tried to make a game of it, but that leads me to my MVP. just that who may or may not be here that much longer, but the MVP this year for the Eagles is Jeff Stoutland. Kudos to you, sir.
Yeah, nice twist.
If you're leaving, I'm going to miss you. I don't know what our offensive line is going to be, but listen, buddy, you earned every cent of that paycheck this year. You should have been paid double for what you had to deal with on the fly, who you had to coach up, the moving parts that you had, and to still at times give clean pockets. Kudos to you. We appreciate you.
Okay.
What about for you, Jeff?
Say my MVP, I would say I went to obvious choice. I would say we all know, like, he's another guy that's a Philly favorite. He helped us win the Super Bowl with that big sack on Brady, and that's Brandon Graham. I would say 8 sacks this year, his first Pro Bowl, well-deservingly. There really wasn't much. I would say honorable mentions. I put down, I would say Alex Singleton. I would say I agree. I would say he had a hell of a season. In 11 starts, he had over 120 combined tackles. So he was a tackling machine, like you brought up before. And another one, I would say honorable mention, Miles Sanders. I would say I understand he didn't live up to the hype. He didn't break the 2,000 total yards from scrimmage, but you have to realize he was used very sparingly and very limitedly with Doug and in this offense. I don't think he had a game over 20 touches this season, and he still eclipsed over 1,000 yards from scrimmage and 6 touchdowns in 12 games. Yeah. So I would say it's definitely moving towards the right direction. He needs to work on his catching ability, especially depending who comes here, whatever type of offense they bring, being that threat out of the backfield. He needs to work on his blocking like Chuck has brought up in the past. But I would say he's definitely he's going to be, I feel, a force, especially with an offensive line that is going to hopefully improve next year when they get back a bunch of key pieces.
Okay. What's up, G-Man Knows? Hello to you, too. I'm not sure if that's really who you are, but, I mean, I'm pretty sure you may have school tomorrow.
Bengals fan. Good luck to you, bro.
some school tomorrow. I hope Joe Burrow comes back. I know that knee got pretty torn up, but they're definitely looking up for them, and they have an advantageous number pick overall. Maybe they may go Devontae Smith or wide receiver or somebody like that.
I'm willing to bet money. The reason, and Burrow getting hurt is the reason for this. If he's there at 5, they're picking Sewell. I will book it if he is there at 5. If he doesn't go earlier, to Miami, because I think, and I've said that this is how I think it's going to go. I think it's going to be QB, obviously. So I think Jags go QB, Jets go QB. I think Miami, if they don't trade down, they go wide receiver or some other. I don't think they go QB. They'll go with some other position. So that's the wild card. They can go wide receiver. They can pick Sewell or anything. At 4 is who is it at 4? Atlanta. I think they go QB.
Atlanta's at 4.
Atlanta goes QB, and then at 5, Bengals. If Sewell is there, I will put. If there's a DraftKings prop bet, player prop bet, I will put money down that the Bengals go Sewell because they need to protect Burrow. They cannot lose him to another, serious injury like that.
No.
So I think Sewell will be the pick for the Bengals.
Do you think that they go if the Jets hire Doug Pederson? Do you think they go QB?
I think they go QB regardless.
Really?
I think
Wilson or Fields?
I think I could be wrong. Gut instinct, I think Fields, but I could be wrong. Okay. I don't know. But I think it'll be QB. I think you can't, with a new coach coming in and them kind of resetting everything and Joe Douglas getting hired last year, I think they just want to start over. I think they want to bring in their own new guy. So I don't know what they're going to do with Darnold. It was already reported that Joe Douglas came out and said, oh, hey, be on the lookout. We're going to make a splash trade sometime this offseason. So maybe that's Darnold being shipped out. But regardless of what they do, I do think that they go QB at 2.
To me, that says maybe a Deshaun Watson trade. Darnold number 2 overall, and then 2 number 1s, future number 1s. Is that not enough?
I don't know. I didn't think about that. I don't know. I don't think Darnold and the 2 number 1s is enough. Whatever Mina Kimes, who is, by the way, the queen of Twitter. I love freaking Mina Kimes.
Yeah, she is.
She's the queen. She said that
I read that tweet.
whatever your offer is for Deshaun Watson, it's not enough.
Oh,
And it's just freaking true. It's like whatever you can think of, it's not going to be enough for Deshaun Watson. So it's going to take a lot more than that, I think, to get him if the Jets.
Oh yeah, I mean, but for the Jets, it may be worth it. I mean, the team, I think it's worth it more for them to trade for him is probably the Patriots, because you proven as an organization that you can find talent. Your first round picks to you don't mean shit. So just trade the next 7 of them bitches, because it's not going to matter. It's not going to matter. It's at all. It's not going to matter. They really should do it. But let's get into this divisional round of playoff games as we're up against it a little bit here. I think we about 10, 15 minutes left. And go around. I know the late game Saturday is LA Green Bay. Is that the first game? Is there one?
That's the 4:35 game. The second game is the Bills Ravens game, 8:15.
Oh, well, let's go in chronological order. What's the first game?
Yeah, first game.
Packers Rams.
Packers Rams. Well, I'm gonna say this right off the bat, and I said it months ago toward like the middle of the season or beginning of the season. My Super Bowl matchup is Chiefs Packers this year. So that'll tell you all you know about my prediction for this game. I think the Packers are going to the Super Bowl. So I think they're going to win it. However, I will say, because I just don't think they have, like, I don't think the Rams just have, like, Goff has been bad, but their one chance is that defense and Cam Akers, who's come along in the past month.
Yeah.
So if they run the ball, keep Rodgers off the field, and they use that defense, which is a great defense, to kind of, because they match up pretty well in that regard. Right. That defense against, that passing attack, they have a shot. They definitely have a shot to upset the Packers, but I still think the Packers end up with the win here.
Yeah, definitely the Packers. I'll say before the playoffs, I had them and the Saints in the NFC Championship game. So I'm going to stick with my pick with the Packers. Aaron Rodgers is too much. Probably MVP of the league this year. I agree with Chucks. I'll say I feel the Rams are going to make it a game, especially with that pass rush. I understand Aaron Donald is banged up, but he is going to be playing this week, according to their head coach. And I'll say it's going to be an interesting matchup, like someone brought before, Jalen Ramsey versus Devontae Adams. So I feel the difference in this game is definitely going to be the quarterbacks, and Rodgers is just too good for the Rams to keep up with the Packers for the amount of points they've been putting up this season. So I'm going with Green Bay.
I'm going to go with Green Bay, but a little bit different. I'm going with Green Bay for the fact of I just don't know how much production they're going to get at the quarterback position.
Yeah,
I think they got away with it last week in Seattle. You won't get away with it in Green Bay. A team that's rested, coming off a week's rest. You're not going to get away with that, and I think that's just. And there's no fault. There's nothing you can do. I mean, Jared Goff broke his thumb 4 weeks ago, and then Warford has a concussion. So I mean, unless you fucking suit up Blake Bortles, I mean, but that's not the answer. That's not the answer. I think it'll be a low scoring game, just because of the defense that the Seattle that the Rams can play. But I still have Green Bay winning. So the game of the weekend, I think, is Saturday night. And I've gone back and forth with this game, Ravens Bills. I'll talk myself into picking the Bills. I'll talk myself into picking the Ravens.
Yep.
I don't know who to go with at this. I don't even know what the line is on this game. It should then there be a pick 'em, because not unless I guess Buffalo has to give the 3 because they're their home team. But I mean, they're going to have fans there. But this is tough. This is a tough one.
I was really impressed how Lamar Jackson, he started off a little shaky at the beginning of the game, but then he really got into a groove. I think that run, the touchdown run he had, really opened things up for him, got him settled down and got him momentum. And that's when the Ravens kind of just like not cruised, but that's when they really started to open things up. So if Lamar is on, that match that I don't want to say matchup because they don't face each other, but like it's going to be interesting to see the shootout between Lamar and Josh Allen. And Josh Allen is playing as well as any quarterback in the league, and I love saying that because going into the season, if you remember, Pete, like, and I've never been the biggest Josh Allen fan because of how he's played before this season, and I'm not going to sit here and say I was wrong because I've always said Josh Allen has had super high potential, but he hasn't put it together yet. And if you compare to what he was before to what he is now, I wasn't wrong. But seeing how he's playing now and that he has improved his accuracy, his decision making, most of all, he's not turning the ball over like he was. That's awesome to see because when he does that, he puts it together. You get to be like this. That's so much fun to watch, and that's what we all, like critics like me of Josh Allen before. That's all we wanted to see was him put it together and not crown him too early. And so it's really hard that a lot of people have said that this Bills team reminds them a lot of the Eagles Super Bowl team because of their swag and the way they carry themselves and their confidence. And I can't argue against that. Like that in terms of just that, they do, it's hard to argue against that. So it's going to be a really fun matchup. I think the Ravens defense is definitely going to have their hands full, but they can be up to the task at that, looking at that roster, and it's exciting. I don't know. I'm going to have to pick Buffalo, but it's a coin toss to me. It's really a coin toss.
Yeah, I agree. I would say it's basically up in the air right now. The spread is Buffalo -2.5. So to answer your question, Pete, Buffalo is of course favored, but I agree with Chuck. I would say this one's just too close. It's going to be very entertaining. Two of the best up and coming quarterbacks in the league for years to come, and I don't know. It's very difficult. I would say the Bills' offense is very dynamic this year, second in the NFL with 31.5 points, and they also have a very opportunistic defense that is third in the NFL with 26 takeaways. So, but I would say on the other side, the Ravens have a dynamic quarterback with Lamar Jackson. I feel I'm going to give the edge. I'm going to go Buffalo. I had Buffalo in the championship game as well against Kansas City. So I'm going to go Buffalo. I feel Sean McDermott, with his defensive background, is going to design some type of game plan to cause some issues for Lamar Jackson and cause him some havoc, which without Lamar Jackson, the Ravens are doomed. So if he doesn't play well.
For me, I land on the fact of I just think the Bills are a more complete team, especially on the offensive side of the ball. Now, don't get me wrong, they lost Zach Moss, but they give Josh Allen good protection. And this is the thing about the Sean McDermott defense. They play defense as a unit. I'm pretty sure they're not concerned with Hollywood Brown, Willie Snead, and Andrews. Their main thing is to stop the run. If they can stop Baltimore's running game or contain it somewhat and not give up the big play to Lamar Jackson, I think the Buffalo Bills, because Josh Allen he can just do it all. I mean, he's not Lamar Jackson running the ball, but white boy can run. He got some wheels, and he got a cannon. And Stephon Diggs out there with let me take a chance and a risk. Last dance, Marcus Peters. Peters is going to get beat. You know what I mean? And you got Cole Beasley on the other side. Who's the other kid they got? The young kid. Gabriel Davis? Out of UCF?
Gabe Davis, yeah.
Gabe Davis. I mean, you got Dawson Knox in the tight end too. So it's in Buffalo. I just feel like Buffalo should win this game. I necessarily can't say that Buffalo is the all-out better team, but I just feel like this is a better matchup for Buffalo in this instance. So we got, I think, all Buffalo. I mean, it's not an easy decision. It's not an easy one by any means. So that leads us into Sunday. I think the early game is Browns Chiefs.
Correct.
Yeah.
Sorry. The Browns good feel story, I feel, ends on Sunday. I would say Patrick Mahomes and this Chiefs team, they're obviously probably the best team in football right now. And I would say the Browns played well last week against the Steelers and shocked the world a bit to some people, but
yeah,
Chiefs all the way.
Okay. For me, It's going to be tough, but with Denzel Ward coming back on the back end for the Browns defense, I mean, it's still going to be a problem with the Chiefs.
Definitely.
But if Stefanski can come back and he can play keep away and they have two horses that can run the ball, I'm not counting the Browns out. I wouldn't be completely shocked if they won the game, but I got to go with the Chiefs. And if the Browns lose it, I think what's going to happen is in the Browns fashion, the Cleveland fashion, it's going to come down to the arm of the quarterback and Baker Mayfield either just playing like absolute dog shit on Sunday, or he's going to throw a pick in the big moment in the game. But I think all four of these games are going to be close. But with Patrick, I mean, the same thing I said about Green Bay, though. Andy Reid coming off a bye, you know he's going to have some shit. You know he's going to be prepared. I just don't think that
History he does well.
Yeah, it's just I don't know what Kansas City's run defense is. And Cleveland has the best running backs in the league, the best running back duo in the league. So it depends how that game goes. But it's not going to be like last week. It ain't going to be no 28-0. I can tell you that shit right now.
Yeah, they're not. I think that, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if it's a blowout or a close game.
Right.
I can't give any. I don't see any scenario where the Browns win. I think they won their Super Bowl against the Steelers, and I don't want to downplay it because if I was a Browns fan, I would be ecstatic over that win. That's the first time they're in the playoffs, and then they have that COVID week. And you know, I said last week, I'm like, I'm rooting for them because of the whole COVID situation. I mean, that got them like fired up, and the way they played was inspired. You know, backs against the wall, like. No one thinks we can do this, and they totally blew out the Steelers. I mean, Steelers came back, but the Browns, as soon as the Steelers tried to make a game of it, the Browns seized control every single time. They did. That being said, I think the win. We talk about this all the time. Teams when they have that emotional win, it's hard to carry over. You know, it's hard to carry that over to the next week and be as have that same adrenaline running. Like we saw it with Minnesota, the Minnesota Miracle. You know, huge emotional win, and then the next week they get blown out by the Eagles. So it's hard for me. Like I still think that the Browns are going to play well. I just don't know. I feel like they can play well this game and still get blown out. Because I think the Chiefs coming off the bye are just going to – because the way I see it, and I could be wrong, but the Chiefs, they haven't been playing well the past few weeks. Games have been closer than they wanted to. But I think knowing Reid, that's kind of like, all right, now we hit the switch. Yeah. I don't think there's a lot of people, a lot of players or coaches that can just hit the switch when it comes to the postseason. But I think Reid and Mahomes – are one of them. And another big thing is that getting back Clyde Edwards-Helaire, I think that's big. You know, he might not get a full complement of touches, but he's coming back. That's going to be big for them, you know, running the ball in the postseason and him as a receiver out of the backfield. So I don't see a scenario where the Browns win. I hate saying that like with absolute certainty. I think that they're emotionally spent. I think the Chiefs are too much of a good team ready to just turn it on right now in the playoffs.
Chiefs are a 10-point favorite, by the way, as well.
Yeah, so. I think the Browns cover in that.
They could. I
think the Browns cover. So future Hall of Famer first ballots, you got the GOAT against the impersonator GOAT, as I like to say. I've never been a fan of Drew Brees.
You both.
You can at me if you want. But it's hard to beat a team 3 times. Yeah, it's hard. We seen that. We just saw it with Cleveland, Pittsburgh, and I wasn't impressed with the Saints last week. I wasn't impressed. You only put up 21 points on Chicago Bears. I wasn't impressed with their offense, and I will say this: I cannot stand the Saints defense. The whole handshakes after every fucking tackle. Malcolm Jenkins, you fucking turncoat on the field, off the field. I love you here in Philly, but on the field, you son of a bitch.
I love Malcolm though.
I hope I see the back of your jersey on Sunday, bitch. I want to see the back of your jersey running after Antonio Brown, Chris Godwin, Mike Evans. I just think it's too much with Cameron Brate, Scotty Miller. Tom Brady in the playoffs is different than Tom Brady in the regular season. So this is probably the only road team that wins. And I'm gonna go with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Give us a Brady Rodgers, another iconic QB matchup in the biggest game, in the biggest moments of the season, in the NFC Championship game. I'm going Bucs.
I'll say I'm torn because I'll say I agree with you. It's very difficult beating a team 3 times in the season, one of your divisional opponents. You're going up against one of the greatest, but just I don't know, the whole thing of Breeze, possibly this is his last run, retiring at the end of this season. I just feel that type of the team's going to be playing for Breeze if they knowing that this is possibly his last run. And I'll say 2 high-powered offenses, Breeze, Kamara versus Brady, Mike Evans, Gronk. So it's gonna be an offensive explosion. I don't feel there's gonna be any defense whatsoever played in this football game. It's gonna come down to whichever quarterback makes the least amount of mistakes. It's basically a toss-up, but I'm just gonna go with what my original pick before the playoffs were, that the Saints were going to the NFC Championship game, and I did have them into the Super Bowl in the preseason before the season started. I had them in Ravens, so I'm just gonna stick with my pick and go with the Saints.
Okay.
Because I hate the Saints, except for Malcolm. Malcolm, I love you. I still love you, Malcolm.
Oh, by the way, screw Sean Payton.
I hate Sean Payton. I don't know if I've said this before on the show, but in terms of teams that I hate, it goes Dallas, Giants, and the Saints. I hate the Saints more than I hate the Washington football team because I can't stand them. But I'm gonna pick. I think I can see it going either way. I think the Saints definitely, because of what you guys said, it's tough to beat a team 3 times in a season. So I definitely could see a scenario. I wouldn't be one bit surprised if the Saints do win. However, I'm going to pick the Bucs because I want the showdown between Brady and Rodgers so bad, so that Rodgers can beat him, and then he can quiet some of the haters. I mean, not totally. Everyone's still going to consider Brady the GOAT, which is true, but I would love for Rodgers to get some late career revenge on the Brady fans out there. So I've been rooting all year for Rodgers to get one more, and This season it looks like I really hope it's this season. So along the way, I want him beating Brady to me is more satisfying and fun than him beating Breeze. So I am going to root for,
especially in cold weather. And cold weather, Breeze, we already fucking know.
Exactly.
Know.
I really want to see that, and I can't root for the Saints. I can't root for the Saints. I like 3 things about the Saints. I like Malcolm right now. I like Alvin Kamara, even though he's still he can sometimes be.
He's pumped.
I still these 2 talented running back, and I like their white jerseys, the white all white uniforms, the White Ranger Power Ranger uniforms. You can't convince me that they're not white Power Ranger uniforms. They are. They look exactly like the white Tiger Power Ranger uniforms. And ever since then, I was like, these uniforms are great. They're one of the best in the league. So I like, those are the only 3 things I like about the Saints. Everything else, they can go kick rocks. So I think I'm gonna root and pick for the Bucs to win it.
Okay. So that wraps up another edition of Birds of a Feather. And my boy Chucks is going to take us out, but we wish y'all a happy week. We'll see you here next Thursday. And we'll see where the Eagles have a coach. And we'll see. We'll preview the conference championship games. Stick with us because I think Hockey Happy Hour is coming up next with a special guest. I don't know who the guest is, but it's a hockey guy. And it's hockey back. See, Chucks has a Flyer shirt on. So, Chucks, take us home.
Yeah, absolutely. Jeff, first of all, thanks for coming on again. We hope we see more of you.
Hopefully.
In the future, hopefully. But it's nice having you on, man.
Yes, it is.
Another fun time. So thank you. To all the viewers, thank you so much again for tuning in whether on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Instagram. Apple Podcasts. Remember to download us. All right. If you're not going to listen to the whole thing, at least download, because that helps us on Apple Podcasts. Stitcher, Twitch, we're all over the internet. So thank you for tuning in. From myself, Pete, Jeff, for Tom, Chrome, our sponsors, Paul Vidal, Specialized Physical Therapy, for MBuck Services, Gutter Cleaning, and from Philly Drinkers, where you can get all your A2D merchandise. Make sure you catch, like Pete said, Hockey Happy Hour coming up at about half an hour or less. Our other shows also, we got the Combat Sports Stop, Kep's Corner in this very ring this weekend, kicking in stateside this weekend. What else? Agree to Disagree, Sports Hounds, Lazy Booking, all the other shows, Fixing the PM, and A2D After Dark. And there's one more, what was it, Burning It Up with Rachel Blaze? Something like that. I forget what it was. Yeah. So all those shows, make sure you catch them, guys. Every day we've got a bevy of shows. So tune in. Don't forget to subscribe. For myself and Pete and Jeff, enjoy the weekend. And hopefully by next week, I doubt it. Maybe by next week we'll have a coach to talk about. Maybe not. But regardless, we will have something to talk about, as we always do, pertaining to the Eagles. Maybe some draft talk pretty soon. You guys have been up in about a month or so. So if you guys want to talk draft, I started doing my homework. I know Pete, you have to. Jeff, I'm assuming you have to. So we got some draft heavy guys in this show now. So you got your questions, come on our show and we'll answer them best we can. All right, guys. You guys have a good night. Always fly, go fly. Enjoy the playoffs.
Peace.